Thank you so much for that, Charlie. I'm sorry I jumped on Tim. I'm just so excited.
I just want to talk about wine.
Okay, that's why I'm so excited because it's National Women's History Month, as we all know. Did you know that? I knew that.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
It's coming to an end, though.
I know. Yes, it's coming to an end. So we're going to have a great month cap. And in a male-dominated industry, we thought that we'd bring in a woman who is thriving and who is rising above it all. So she's Mandy Oser, owner and wine director at Ardesia. It's a wine bar and house kitchen. She's going to discuss with us the wine industry and how in this, again, male-dominated space, highlighting women's wineries and wine made by women is important. And we're seeing an increase of wine sales this month as well, according to her. So let's welcome Mandy. So thank you so much. Should we cheers? Is that awkward?
We can do whatever.
Cheers. Yes. For those listening on radio, I just raised my wine glass.
Cheers.
And Tim did not.
Oh, sorry. Here. Well, there's just so many to choose from. Mandy, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's been, we like to, Isabel, as Isabel knows, we like to sort of end the week sometimes when it's been a challenging week, talking a little about the wine industry and talking about the alcohol industry. And one thing that's on our radar right now is this potential acquisition by Pernod Ricard of Brown-Forman. And it brings to mind the parent company of Jack Daniels. And it brings to mind the challenges that the alcohol industry has faced.
Yes.
And it's interesting because the younger generations in the U.S. are drinking less. And and we've heard stories about the wineries in California being affected as a result. What are you seeing in your business?
Right. I think that's a great question. We've been hearing this, read the same articles, we've been hearing the same news, and, we are monitoring it. But I think I would strike a little bit more of a positive note. I think that, there's definitely a shift going on. There's definitely something. You can't deny these headlines. But I think when you talk about, for example, the younger generation, maybe they're not drinking as much, but maybe they're drinking differently. Maybe I think we're finding they're very interested in the stories behind the wines, the producers, what are their values. So I think what we're trying to do is really adapt into this new reality and meet people where they are. Another example we'll talk about in a little bit is de-alcoholized wine. There's been so much development in that space, and I think that is just another element of hospitality, and it's a way we can kind of bridge the gap.
Are de-alcoholized wines more expensive, and how is the demand there? Because you talked about shifting behavior, but what about shifting spending patterns?
Great question, and I think it's something that is a little tricky and something, for example, at Ardesia, at my wine bar, that we have to navigate because de-alcoholized wines actually are quite expensive to produce because you have to remove the alcohol. The best producers, like Oddbird that we'll talk about, use a process where they spin the wine at a cool temperature and the alcohol drops out. The old way was to heat it and sort of burn it off, and then you kind of destroy the flavor of the wine.
I've had some pretty bad de-alcoholized wines.
Yeah, and I think everyone has, but I think the page has turned. So I think when you talk about economics, then the challenge is how do you explain to the consumer and the guest that these aren't going to be cheap? Taking out the alcohol doesn't make it a cheaper thing.
That's a good point, because mocktails are far cheaper than cocktails. But
buy, they're cheaper for the
when I
bar
go
to make.
When I go to a bar,
mocktails are actually cheaper.
Under $11-12, and then the ones with alcohol would be like 18,
and I think
20.
that's the prevailing moment that we're in, but I think that's part of my job as a wine bar owner, as someone who's a purveyor, to tell the story and explain why you are maybe going to pay a little more than you were expecting, but you know what, you're going to get a great product and you're going to find it delicious.
So what do consumers want right now? What are you finding?
So in Ardesia, we have a little bit of a specialty in focusing on lesser known, a little under the radar wines. For example, we have a whole page on wines from Hungary. We have a wine on the list from Serbia. And I think, at least in my experience, people are very curious right now. They're curious about the local wine industry. Of course, the classics are always going to be the classics, and people are always going to love a great aged Bordeaux, a great Burgundy, no shade to those types of wines. But I'm finding in my environment just great curiosity, natural wines, pet nats, And so we're trying to just explore those and share those.
What's a pet nat?
I was going to ask.
Sorry, I don't mean to get too wine geeky. It's a style of sparkling wine that tends to be associated with the natural wine movement because it ferments, it does a second fermentation in the bottle. So it's a less complicated way to make sparkling, a very simple kind of friendly style of sparkling.
Talk to us about your effort to highlight women-led wineries. I mean, it is, again, National Women's Month. And how did you get into that?
Yeah, I think my curiosity often leads my wine choices, and it happened to be that, a lot of great wine that I love are made by women. Aww. And this month we just looked at our list and we took stock and we thought, let's really call them out, because we talk about how women are still underrepresented in our industry. Well, what's a great way to try to change that? I think it's to promote women and buy their wines and sell them and talk about them. So we have a whole page on our new list that highlights all of our women producers, and it's just been a great attraction for our guests. They're loving having that called out.
So what do we have here in front of us? If you're watching on YouTube or Bloomberg Originals, you can see 3 wines, and one of them is dealcoholized, but I'll let you take it.
Yeah, well, I thought we could start with the Italian white. It's called Zenato. It's a family producer. It's from Italy.
I'm holding it right now.
Yeah. And it's second generation family run by brother and sister, Nadia and Alberto Zenato. This is bright, fresh, crisp, all about stone fruit, citrus. I kind of think it's a perfect summertime wine.
I like that we're thinking about summer.
We're summer, spring,
Yeah.
I'm already
It
in
works
summer.
right now. I just had a sip.
Feel free to take a little sip. And I think for me, that's the definition of like a crisp, refreshing white that can, you can have just to sip. It'd be great with cheeses. This is such an all-around wonderful wine. Jumping to the second, we're going to go in a little different direction.
Okay.
It's a red. It's a Rioja. The producer is Faustino. Long storied producer. They're in their 5th generation, run by 2 sisters currently, who are quite innovative. And I think that's what we see a lot with women taking over the wineries too.
Is this right? I have
This is it. Yep.
The red. Okay.
They are bringing new energy, new innovation to the wineries. So the Faustino sisters, they're focusing on environmental causes, and they built a new visitor center that's solar powered. The excess power essentially is enough to run the winery.
Where is this one?
This is from Spain, from the
Okay.
Rioja region. Tempranillo is the grape. This is going to be a contrast with what we just had, a little bit richer, a little spice.
Ooh,
It's
okay.
10 years of age, so it's a Gran Reserva. Theirs is the best-selling Gran Reserva in the world.
Ooh, I like that
believe.
one.
So that's a little bit more for the cooler, crisp nights that we still have going on.
Amazing.
Good with-
And just are you mostly finding that people are buying this by the glass, buying it by the bottle?
I'd say the red that we're drinking is definitely more of a by the bottle, kind of open it up, let it breathe a little bit. The white that we tasted is perfect by the glass. That you'll probably find at Ardesia in the coming weeks, because I really, truly love that wine, as well as the Rioja. But thinking ahead to the seasonal change, that this really caught my eye. And last but not least, sometimes when I'm tasting wine, I love to finish with bubbles. You kind of think of bubbles first, but they can be so refreshing on the palate. Sometimes nice to end with bubbles.
Like a chaser.
After
Chaser.
a red. This is called Oddbird. This was created
I like this one.
2013 by a Swedish woman. And she was really ahead of the curve on the no alcohol wines, and really envisions a world where it's nothing special. You just have your wine with alcohol or without, and you're not othered or you're not stigmatized. So that's
Do you
what
think the technology and the producers will reach that? This is delicious, by the way.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, but there is the taste is different when there is no alcohol.
Yeah.
You definitely. I
you can tell?
Absolutely, yeah. I can tell when something has alcohol.
It's a
and when
texture
something
thing too, because the alcohol brings a lot of texture. So if you're taking that away, you have to replace it with something. So, some people replace it with chemicals or sugar, but with this producer, they really focus on grapes that they feel can withstand having the alcohol removed. So this is Chardonnay and Colombard. So they're bigger, bolder grapes that withstand that process. So I think as producers get better and better at making quality wine, then we'll have more and more that you might not even know the difference, I think, soon.
That's great. Great for
What do
you
you
and me,
think?
Tim. This one is really
great.
good, actually, because I'm not a wine drinker, even when I was drinking alcohol, but
Yeah.
I like this one a lot. Very crisp, very
Yeah, this one's
summery.
really good.
I would say crisp and something that's
look at
really
me,
nice.
crisp.
Like you don't have to worry about it if you're
Yeah.
hosting, even if you're not a fully non-drinker. I think that's what's really lovely is you can just incorporate it into your evening and not have to worry.
What are you seeing as, you talked about some of the trends of different parts of the world where people are finding good wines. What's a really underappreciated region in your view?
Ooh, that is a great question. Let's see. I think one that I would love to see more from is Uruguay in South America. There's some really great bold reds there from the Tannat grape, whites from Torrentes that I really love. I also think some of the countries, I think I mentioned earlier, Hungary, Eastern Europe, they have such a long history and tradition of winemaking, but their wines haven't been as common here. So I think even in Armenia, there are a lot of expats moving back, or not expats, sorry. They're first generation Armenians are moving back to Armenia and starting wineries, and there's been this big explosion there. So I think, that's, again, sort of a micro in the whole world of wine, but I think we're going to see some really interesting things and from places you wouldn't have maybe thought of either, didn't even think produce wine or wouldn't have great wine, but those three countries I just mentioned are wonderful.
Don't we love technological advancements, Tim?
I do.
Yeah.
And even old school wine too.
Yeah, that's
There's room for
doesn't
both,
need.
You
There
can
is,
have
yeah.
the new and you can have the classics, and that's really what we believe at Ardesia. We like to explore it all and introduce it to our guests and make it just fun and unintimidating,
Well, Mandy, thanks so much for joining us and sharing some of this wine with us
thank
here on
you for having
Bloomberg
us.
Businessweek Daily. That's Mandy Oser, owner of Ardesia, joining us here in the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Okay, now we can do a cheers.
I know, it's the
Yeah.
This is the highlight of my
I know,
week.
you're very
Okay,
excited.
cheers.
You're very excited.